Crowd scene.
It's a nightmare on Sesame Street. Raw meat, puppets, and twisted children's songs that descend into terror may not sound like a recipe for massive internet success, but that's exactly what Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared has become. In this episode, Pete and I explore the world of original content made for the web, and this web series, Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared, inhabits a David Lynchian suburb far left of Sesame Street. They have racked up an incredible amount of YouTube views and have run a very successful Kickstarter campaign. Today, Pete and I find out how they did it. But first, let's have a quick look at the news.
Mike, quick quiz. What do you find right at the bottom of every single Kickstarter campaign page?
Risks. They list the risks. Yes.
The risks.
What do I win?
What do you win? You get to hear the rest of the news.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Yay.
Do you think anyone ever reads the risks bit at the end?
I think it's fairly standard. Probably people just get past that. They're either in or they're out.
Yeah.
By that point.
I've backed a bunch of Kickstarter campaigns. I don't think I've ever read the risks and challenges section, to be honest.
Well, you're kind of a freewheeler. You know, you kind of live on the edge.
You're right. Very few people are as laid back and cool about everything as me.
Yeah, you're very cool. Yeah, is that the news? How cool you are?
That's the news. Next week, find out how cool Mike is.
Oh, good. Oh, bring on next week.
Yeah. Well, I think people should probably start reading that section.
Oh.
I want to talk about a project from 3 years ago.
Okay.
And the project was called ARKYD. It's ARKYD. And ARKYD was billed as the world's first crowdfunded space telescope.
Oh.
And it was put together by a bunch of space engineers, people who literally worked on some of the projects that put rovers onto Mars.
Okay.
Really impressive engineering backgrounds. They put together a very impressive video with cameos from people like Richard Branson and Bill Nye. And they were promising to put this amazing space telescope into space. But they had this great gimmick as well, which was that they put something that looked like an iPhone on the outside of the satellite, and then a camera above that. And they were selling a reward for $25, whereby you would have your picture displayed on this phone in space, and they would take a photo of it with the Earth in the background, so that your photo would be in space.
That's a pretty
so
cool.
many people backed it. Yeah, it's pretty cool, isn't it? I mean, I can see why that would be appealing. So they raised $1.5 million from 17,000 people.
Wow. Well done.
That was 3 years ago, so they did pretty well. But as you might have guessed by now, this project did take a turn for the worse, unfortunately.
Okay.
And just this week, they posted an update where they basically said, look, that's it, folks. It's not going to happen.
Dream crusher. Wow.
Yeah.
What happened?
Well, they gave quite a complicated statement, but I think reading between the lines, they basically say they ran out of money, and they made some excuse like, well, we didn't get the kind of onboarding from other business partners that we were expecting to get, even though none of that was mentioned in the campaign. However. Unlike the last time we covered a story like this that went sour, there is a bit of a silver lining, at least.
Okay.
So in their update, they said they're also going to refund absolutely everybody that backed the project.
Wow. Including Richard Branson?
It's not clear that Richard Branson backed the project. I think he can probably send stuff into space on his own.
Right. Yeah. So they're going to pay everybody back. That's surprising.
They're going to pay everybody back. But I mean, obviously people are still really upset.
And for many people, that's going to be the closest they'd ever get to space.
I think you're absolutely right, yeah. Other than the fact that we're all technically in space.
Maybe there could be some sort of consolation, like instead of taking your photo to space, we took your photo to New York City or Disneyland or something.
It's not quite such an appealing thing, is it?
No, but this is like
especially if you live in New York City.
Yeah, that would be disappointing. What would you send to space, Pete?
Easy. Donald Trump. On a kind of course set for the sun. That's the news. Well, hopefully the founders can set their sights on something a little closer to home next time.
Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared is a YouTube phenomenon created in the vein of innocent children's programming. Over the course of each short episode, the action always descends into mind-bending, hilarious terror. The nightmarish combination of puppets, sing-along tunes, and raw meat has helped them notch up 100 million views and 900,000 subscribers on YouTube.
Sunrise, sunset, night and day, the changing seasons, the smell of hay. Look at your hair grow, isn't it strange? How time makes your appearance change.
Our guest on Crowdscene today is Ben Lole, a London-based creative producer who is part of the core team behind Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. Ben's here to explain how on earth this ever got made.
In 2014, after making 2 episodes on their own, the team turned to Kickstarter in order to raise enough money to create 4 more. In 29 days, they raised £105,000. That's about $150,000 from 3,500 backers. So let's meet Ben and take a peek behind the warped minds that put this stuff together.
Hey Ben, welcome to the show. Congratulations on an incredible success on Kickstarter.
Thanks very much. Yeah, it's been crazy.
So Ben, give us the quick version. How would you describe Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared to someone who'd never seen it before?
I'd probably sum it up like the Muppets children's show combined with a very bad acid trip. It starts out really, kind of pleasantly and usually takes a bit of a left turn and ends up somewhere quite dark.
So these episodes are 5 minutes long?
They vary depending on how there's no rules. I think that's one of the things about Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. There aren't any rules.
It starts off when you think this is something I recognize. There's puppets and this is the sunny world.
And primary colours.
Yeah, primary colours. Sesame Street, Pee Wee Herman, Muppets. So these things feel like, oh, this is going to be nice. And then 3 minutes later, your mind is doing flips.
Yeah, well, I mean, the series as a whole, it started with that as a kind of formula, but I think it's something that is definitely we're evolving and developing. I know Becky and Joe, the creators of it, they're always keen to use it as an opportunity to push what they do and to just play basically, and with an experiment. It's experimental. I think that's a good way of summing it up.
But it's comedy. I mean, it's
definitely weird and funny. It's surreal. Yeah. It does have that surreal comedy. I think one of the best things I'm proudest of is that the quality of the characters in it, in terms of being able to bring usually inanimate objects to life, and they take on a life of their own, and they become really kind of I wouldn't say likable characters because they're usually pretty scary by the end of it, but they're amazing.
You mentioned Becky and Joe as the creators of the show. So what's your role on the project?
So I'm the producer, one of the producers, because I work pretty much full time for a company called Blink, we work with Becky and Joe as directors for commercials and other projects, and we kind of have been housing the production. And I do it in between other projects with Hugo Donkin, who's the other producer, and we kind of share the task of producing and trying to kind of like work out how to bring Becky and Joe's crazy sort of ideas to life somehow.
So Ben, for someone like me who isn't that au fait with the world of creating something like this, what exactly is the role of a producer?
That's a big question. It varies. It varies from sort of person to person. I mean, there's a kind of responsible for the logistics of a project and the budget, and the kind of the crew. So you're kind of responsible for bringing everything that's required to make something good.
But there's a creative role as well.
But also, I mean, what's really nice, especially with working with Becky and Joe, and that's the thing that varies, is that we're all part of the team. It becomes a big. We're all, talking about the development of it and the ideas, and we do storyboards and what's in the industry called an animatic. So it's kind of like making the film with pictures before to work it all out. And we're all involved in that sort of process. But I mean, Becky and Joe and Baker, Terry, who's the writer, with them, they work out. They start it off, and we kind of are involved creatively, but also, sadly, restrictively, because sometimes you go, we can't do that. We'll have to work out.
So you're the person who has to crush their dreams.
Yeah. So I'm creatively anti-creative.
Yes.
But I mean, no, it's important. One of the most important things is just for us to try and find a way of maintaining that integrity of the show with the money that we've raised, and that's a limitation, but limitations breed creativity. It's one of my favourite sayings.
I totally agree. Yeah,
producers have to say that all the time.
Yes, exactly.
The topics of each episode are pretty ambitious. Can you give us a sense of what each show is about?
The first episode was called Creativity, and it starts with these 3 kind of like puppet characters red, yellow, and green, as we often refer to them. Green's a duck, yellow's a little kind of
Bert from Sesame
a
Street.
bit like
Yes.
a Bert Sesame Street character, and red who is a guy. He's got someone in a suit with long kind of. He looks
Monsterish.
kind of but cute.
Okay,
You know,
great.
and
I love
he's
that Ben
not
was like,
scary.
wait a second, monster.
He's
No.
not scary.
I love that
He's
guy.
not. He's very kind of
nice.
deadpan and kind of almost like bored by everything.
He's a nice guy. Yeah, I'd say that's one of his character traits. Is sounds really bored about
Yes.
everything. They have a little notepad that comes alive and sings them a song about creativity, and at some point they start to understand what creativity is, and they start being creative, and that's when it kind of goes a bit wrong, because there's a dark side to creativity, and I think it sums up the kind of ethos of the whole thing, really, which is creativity is a challenge, and you can end up in a dark place. And then at the end, when the lesson that they learn is that maybe they should never be creative because it's scary.
Yeah.
So you're describing the episode that actually notched up about 30 million.
That's
views.
currently on about 30 million views.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was 5 years ago.
Let's pause for a second.
So
30 million views. It's incredible.
Yeah.
I did want to ask, so when they set out to make it, they weren't being strategic about it. They weren't like, let's make a viral hit.
no, there's no cynicism in Don't Have Me, I'm Scared. I mean, it really is an opportunity to experiment. I think that the first episode, because it was such a phenomena, and because it done so well, it generated a huge fan base, and the internet, loved it. It has a very, amazing and specific and slightly weird fan base, and I think so that was the first episode, and there was a gap then. I mean, Blink and Blink Industries then worked with Becky and Joe on some projects, and then there was the opportunity.
Did Blink Industries reach out to Becky and Joe, or did they
I think
all
Blink
know
has
each other?
Blink Inc., which is the kind of commercial department that we do animation and
Based in London.
yeah, signed them as directors
on the back of the first episode.
Well, and there are other work and their kind of student work and things that they've done, just because they're amazing and we wanted to work with them.
Well, on that, I mean, how does a project like this go from something that's funny, that's shared with family and friends, to 30 million views? What's the catalyst moment that pushes it to that tipping point?
I think that's that kind of mysterious alchemy that everybody who uses the term "let's make a viral video" wishes they had the answer to. I think the internet is a place that it's a mistake to try and understand and process, because it's a kind of random, uncontrollable. I mean, the stuff that people share, sometimes you go, I can understand why that's amazing, you got to share it, and a lot of the times I go, why am I even looking at this? And it's just I don't think there are any rules to the internet. I think it's the last Wild West. I think it's really hard to kind of have that alchemy. I mean, I think to break it down, that's a kind of flippant answer, actually. I think that one of the things about Don't Have Me, I'm Scared that makes it very appealing on the internet is because you'd never get something like that commissioned on the TV channel. It didn't really exist like that. It doesn't play by any rules, and that's something that we keep doing. It's shocking. And the internet is a place where you can make something and find your own audience. And if it has something special, it does get shared, and the audience is huge. And it doesn't need to be targeted, and it doesn't need to be kind of like demographed or anything like that. It just exists on the internet, and if people like it, then it does well.
Given the time required to produce something like this with puppets and a huge art team, how do you, working with Becky and Joe, determine that this is now ready to be made?
Well, Baker and Joe and Becky, as part of their writing process, they do all the voices. They do all the voices for the whole show anyway. So they make what I referred to earlier. They make an animatic. So Joe storyboards once they've written the script, and they record the voices, and they put the storyboards to the voices. They write the music. So the whole film, when Joe and Becky are happy with it, is kind of like blueprinted out before the shoot. And that's something you have to do with puppetry on the level that we do it anyway. what we do is slightly more complicated than something like Sesame Street or the Muppets, because we do puppeteering and then do a lot of post-production to take out rods and puppeteers and things like that. We've got really good at hiding stuff, so there's less of that to do, but technically, and also, in the digital episode, which has actually been the most popular one, because it is probably my favorite one in terms of the character and the song. We did a whole CG section of that. The guys hadn't done CG before. They learnt some stuff that we got some favors in, and now that's become a part of our process. It's all been a great kind of like opportunity to experiment and learn, really.
We'll be back in just a moment, but first let's hear about an upcoming guest. Now, up to this point in your life, you may never have considered actually eating your knife and fork. However, the idea of edible cutlery isn't as crazy as it sounds. Conceived as a way to reduce the toxic waste that results from people throwing away hundreds of billions of plastic utensils every year, it's an idea that is beginning to catch on in India and in Austin, Texas, where our next guest on Crowdscene is based. The Indian inventor of the edible utensils joined forces with our guest Sarah Munir, and after a short film about their product had already gone viral, Sarah made a snap decision and put the project onto Kickstarter in just one day. 4 weeks later, she had raised almost $300,000. How did she do it? Subscribe to Crowdscene on iTunes or any podcast app and find out in our next episode. Now, let's hear more from Ben Lole talking about Kickstarter success with the YouTube hit Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. So let's talk about the crowdfunding. At what point did the team start thinking that they needed to raise money to produce more episodes? And how did that turn into let's crowdfund it?
It's not something that we'd done before. Becky and Joe or myself or Blink as a company. It's not something, or Blink Industries, it's not something that we had done. So there was, it was just a case of we need funding to make these things as ambitious as we could. I mean, for those people who don't know how these things are made, like the quality of them, especially the second episode, the first one's incredible because they did it on their own in a small studio, and I think they spent all their own money, as much money as they had on hiring lights and things for a couple of weeks. The production values that we managed to get on them are all through favors and paying people very, very little to work for quite a long time. Especially the puppet build and all the art department, everything's handmade. All the props are made out of felt, all the sets, everything.
There's a lot of detail. They're very funny, and there are a lot of opportunities to cut corners that don't seem to have been taken because everything is.
We don't cut corners on it, and that's the thing. Like that's why, like I said, time is the most valuable commodity on these things. Is because when you're trying to make a pot of money in it, it seems like a lot of money.
So you raised £105,000 for 4 episodes. Yeah.
How long did it take to make it, and how many people are involved in each episode?
Well, that's a good question. It varies because we have to fit in favors around other people's commitments. On average, we have taken about 6 months per episode. We probably writing and storyboarding and things for a month or a couple of months of that. Sometimes Becky and Joe like to try and find a way to have a life. In between an episode.
Come on, Becky and Joe.
or they don't pay themselves out of the budget, so we will fit in a commercial project if it's suitable and they want to do it. We've got some amazing art department people who, again, we're able to juggle hiring people on commercials, paying them well, and then saying, would you be able to work on for a few weeks or a month building? So we try and juggle things. So that we're looking after people as well as like asking them ostensibly slave labor. Right.
It does seem like every episode is more ambitious than the one before.
Exactly. I mean, that's the thing in terms of pushing ourselves. I mean, I would say the third episode, it's the one I'm most proud of as a producer because it is epic in terms of the scale of the shoot. There's so many characters in it. That's the love episode.
Yes, the picnic.
The picnic, the chicken picnic. Because of the scale of the production, and that was a very long shoot, and there was lots of puppets, and the set's amazing, and that was quite art department heavy. And then we shoot at an amazing studio in southeast London called Clapham Road Studios, and they are the best people in the world in terms of committing to helping us out, and we get the ridiculous deal in terms of how kind they are.
One thing that stood out about the campaign was the video. which of
Yes.
course you would assume that it was going to be a great video, but it was very different to almost any other crowdfunding campaign video I've ever seen.
You mean the video?
The hostage video.
The hostage video.
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean,
Can you talk us through? Sorry, talk us through the thinking behind that, as opposed to doing a regular "Hi, we're Becky and Joe. We want to raise money for this" style video.
well, I mean, I think there's a lot of those videos out there, and you don't necessarily stand out. And the spirit of "Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared" is fun and creativity and keeping it within the world. They wanted to create a narrative. They wanted to create. They use everything they can as an opportunity to create more content. I mean, we do little teaser trailers before the episodes come out often, and it was a case of doing that. They thought it. We're trying to raise money. Let's make it dark and turn it into a hostage situation. That character, the money guy, has never been mentioned really since. It's just this cool sort of way of creating a story within the world.
Was there any kind of traditional PR or kind of reaching out to press or anything like that?
No, I mean, I think the thing about Don't Have Me, I'm Scared that's kind of unique is in the internet is the audience. I think we, around contacts and business contacts and things like that, we shared it and sent some emails out once it was live. In terms of people finding it, like the fans wanted it. They were desperate for more episodes, and that's the biggest part of it. And they shared it, and we've got the online presence, and also hosting those videos on YouTube on their channel was the best source of PR, because the subscribers, I think I didn't check. I think they've got 60,000 or 80,000 subscribers.
So you thought you had 60,000 subscribers?
80 maybe.
As of today, you have 891,684 subscribers.
Okay, I got my numbers wrong. I might have missed a zero off.
It's good though. It suggests that you're busy working on the final episode.
Yeah,
You're occupied.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's an incredible
I'm out of
audience. If you think about that many people in one space.
I mean, I think that's maybe that's grown since we did the Kickstarter campaign.
I mean, the great thing about YouTube, of course, is that everything is free. Is it difficult to convert someone who's happy to watch something for free into someone who's paying money to see more of the same thing?
Well, I think that's where the rewards come in. I think that part of that process is, you get a t-shirt. You're not really backing something. I think you're buying merch.
Right.
On some Kickstarter things. I mean, and that kind of leads into some of the challenges with a Kickstarter campaign. And one of them is all the rewards. I mean, you set out on these things, you do some workings out in terms of money. Okay, well, if I want to raise this much money, how much does a t-shirt cost plus postage? How much does a poster cost plus postage? So you've got to put all that stuff aside in your calculations. You've got to think. I know this is the producer talking, so I'm kind of like, I have to worry about these sorts of things.
Is there something that surprised you about the campaign?
Yeah, I think the biggest surprise when you're getting excited about raising so much money is that you do lose quite a lot to tax, because it's a large amount. And also, obviously it's great. Kickstarter and PayPal do a lot, so they take a cut. And then you got to pay for all the rewards, which you've kind of worked out. And there's lots of pitfalls, like I said, with the amount of those. So you can often end up with quite a lot more. The other thing as well is donations that bounce at the end. So you do lose some from money that people have pledged on cards that don't exist. And this is actually there's actually a funny story about that on this particular campaign.
No.
We did have at one point, I think with a week or so to go, we were fairly short of the target. And miraculously, somebody made a lot of very large donations with a week or so to go. I think it ended up about £30,000 so nearly 30% of our target was donated.
You guys are doing a little happy dance.
Everybody was celebrating. Nobody else was donating because we'd made the target, and it very quickly it felt, looking into who had donated it felt very odd, and it became apparent through a little bit of research that a very young person had managed to find some credit card details somewhere on the internet.
A young fan.
Okay. Bless
their heart was in the right place.
But the heart was very much in the right place. They weren't real credit card details. and they weren't real names. They wasn't really money.
Right.
And we lost a few days. We lost a few days of the campaign. It all came out. I think we got an email from his mum. Lots of apologies. Kickstarter, accepted that it wasn't a real donation, and he was super excited because it just seemed. I guess it seemed like not a real thing. Because it's just numbers. It's numbers on the website.
Yeah.
Right.
And he was very, very young,
Yeah.
and didn't necessarily understand what he was
That's
doing.
funny.
The sad thing is that because everybody stopped donating, it really went down to the wire because people thought, oh, they've made it. I don't have to help.
Yeah.
I just get to watch the episodes without helping, which it makes sense.
So at some point, did the amount you'd raised suddenly have to be wound back 30,000?
Yes. The clock
Wow, that
had
must
to go
have
back
felt
again.
very, very
and they had
depressing.
we put a statement out on the site, to explain what had happened and say, please,
Yeah,
please keep sharing, please keep helping.
There's an excitable 8-year-old in wherever.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't. It in terms of what had happened, it wasn't serious. Just because it was so obviously made up.
Is he a character in your final episode?
No, he didn't. He didn't get to keep the rewards. He doesn't get to do a voice. Sadly, yeah. It would be nice to meet him. I think he was in the States somewhere. If you're out there, no hard feelings.
At what point did you reach the goal? With how many days to go?
I think it was in the last couple of days. I'm not sure. It wasn't right down to the wire, but close enough to make us worry. Close enough to make us worry. And we we hoped that. I mean, we were confident. I think we were confident because of the amount of fans that we had. I was arrogant. I thought we'd make more.
So were you disappointed with the?
Oh no, I wasn't. I wasn't disappointed.
I did wonder that the £96,000 goal, that looks a little bit like somebody who wants to raise 100,000 but doesn't dare actually put 100,000 on the page.
Yeah, it's like charging 99p for something.
Exactly.
Everyone knows it's £1, but you wouldn't spend £1, but you spend the 99p.
Now you've got 3,500 backers who are feeling that they're participating in the creation of the show. Does that change the show? The fact that you have these people who are now collaborating in a sense, or backers for your.
It adds to the pressure that to have the people committed to it. But my general feeling is that everybody just loves it so much that they just want to see more. I like to think they trust us to do something awesome, and I think that's the most important thing. Really, is that everybody knows that we're just trying to do something amazing, as much as possible.
Is this final episode going to surprise people?
Yeah.
Can you tell us anything about
How
this
is it going
final
to surprise
episode?
people?
No. I think one of the other things about the anticipation of what the next episode's going to be, the theme, the characters, we've kind of started to. The series has got some momentum. It's got some direction. It's important that these things are a secret until they're out there, and also, to leave people guessing, because people, part of the enjoyment of the series is people already coming up with theories about what it's for, what it's about, what's going to happen in the last episode. It's important.
Does this have to be the final episode?
It doesn't have to be the final episode. It currently is the last episode of what's been worked out as a 6-part series, effectively. I don't know what happens next.
How does it feel to be putting something out into the world that will almost certainly be watched by 5 million, maybe 10 million people?
Yeah, it's all right. No, it's amazing. It's brilliant. I mean, I love when an episode goes live and watching people's reaction to it, watching it get shared, and it's a fantastic feeling to be a part of a project as much as possible that reaches so many people, and I'm really proud to share it, and I like seeing people I know enjoy it.
Is there any danger in creatively in taking something that feels very homemade and then putting a significant amount of money into it, where you feel like maybe could this become less funny?
Yeah, I mean, I think that part of the pressure of it is we want to keep doing an episode that's good and funny. I don't think having the resources has just made us be more ambitious and be able to do much bigger, more complicated things than the first one, which is pretty much in one room.
Mm-hmm.
Now we've got multiple sets, different scenes, extra characters, and the other thing in terms of doing it now for 3 or 4 years, like each episode does get more ambitious because we're getting better at it. Like the puppets are getting more complex. Things like blinks, things like mechs inside the heads and stuff like that. It's we're on a learning experience with it as well, and we are getting better at it.
Has Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared attracted any interest from major TV networks or anyone who wants to put this out, distributing it via regular TV?
It's very popular. Generally, there's nothing happening that I know of at the moment.
What would you tell someone who wanted to emulate the success of Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared?
Be creative and do something different. I think that's what the internet's for. It's a home for the odd, different stuff that you wouldn't get a commission for off a boring TV channel who doesn't take any risks.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The internet's the place for taking risks and experimenting.
What have you learned from the experience?
Loads, really. I mean, I think in terms of my other work and producing sort of things, I think that you realise that there's a home for really weird stuff, and that gives me the freedom to be quite weird.
I love that. So you guys ran an unusual and ultimately successful campaign. What advice do you have for anyone out there who wants to run their own campaign? Can you give us your top tips for crowdfunding success?
Definitely, number one, do something different and interesting with your campaign video. I mean, if you see a lot of talking head sort of stuff, which is fine, but I think one of the things we did best was create something within the world that sold what we were doing. I think it was easier because we already had an audience that was hungry for more. But you can create that by making something simple but unique. A second tip would probably be, if you're doing something ambitious and trying to raise a lot of money, you do have to work it all out in terms of the rewards and everything like that, because we have felt a pressure not to let people down. And the rewards and the amount of backers and things that we had made it quite an undertaking. I would say a third tip would be, if you don't already have an audience, know who your audience is, and make sure that you're trying to find ways of publicizing your campaign to the right people. Beyond, if it's an ambitious one, beyond your friends and family and people like that. So, without going sort of hard sell on it, like try and be funding something that people want.
Yeah. Or maybe a good tip would be to create a video on YouTube that gets 30 million views.
That's definitely one. A good tip. Step one, already have a viral hit.
Yes,
exactly.
But on that though, there are weird stuff that's on the internet, but not everything has 30 million views. What separates Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared from other things that are in that space?
I don't know. I think it's that kind of special alchemy of just touching on something that people want. I mean, I think the surprise nature of it was kind of short enough for people to share. There is a thing on YouTube which is people react to. I don't remember who it was, the Fine Brothers, I think they are, or something. And they did one on that episode of Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. People reacting to it. Kids react to something like that.
I see. So you're just seeing faces, people reacting to.
Well, they're just talking about it whilst they're watching it, and then they kind of freak out when it goes wrong.
I've never really fully understood the whole reaction thing.
Well, they're quite
huge
funny,
on YouTube.
but they are a huge thing. And actually, that was actually one of the big pushes for a success. We got a lot of hits from people linking to it after watching a reaction to video.
Interesting. Okay. Well, it kind of acts as a great teaser, because then you're like,
well, it does. Yeah.
What are they looking at?
Yeah.
I want to see that.
Yeah.
So, Ben, before we wrap up, it's time for what we call guest picks, which is where we ask our guests to tell us about another crowdfunding campaign that, for any reason, you think is worth taking a look at. So, what have you got for us?
I don't know if it's currently still live. I think it's finished. There's an illustrator called Joan Cornea. His stuff is absolutely crazy, very, very dark. And he just did an amazing Kickstarter video in which he's talking about his work, but it's not him. And I was very confused because I'd never seen who he was. I'd only seen his work. And it's just some old woman talking in Spanish. And I thought, that's not who I expected to be doing this work. And it's incredibly funny.
He's gotten someone to play him.
Yeah, I think he was raising money for a book or to animate, to do an animation of his illustrations. And that's what I meant. I think going back to one of my tips was make a really, I only saw that because someone shared the video. Make a really good, interesting video.
That's a bold move. So he's doing it in Spanish, and two, he's gotten an old lady to play him to do the pitch.
Yeah, it's very, very funny and very well written and just really weird. And it's so spot on what his work is like.
And what platform is that?
The campaign's on Kickstarter, and it's Juan Cornella or Joan Cornella, or, if you're Spanish, you can be upset by that.
Right into Ben.
Joan Cornella Animation Project. I love his illustration work. I think he successfully raised €91,648 with 2,174 backers.
Good memory. Are you sure he is a he and he's not an old woman from Spain?
I am very sure, after a little bit of research from being baffled by the video. I'm pretty sure. Again, I apologize if I'm wrong.
But you are sure that it was intentionally comic?
If it wasn't, it was hilarious. Anyway.
We'll put a link to that in the show notes for this episode.
Ben, listen, before we go, can you leave us with some words of wisdom? Is there a quote that inspires you? Any words to live by?
Yeah, I do have a quote that's quite a big deal to me, which was very appropriate for crowdfunding, is what's for you will not pass you by. And that's something that does me in good stead a lot of the time.
Where does that come from?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
And does that mean that you can kind of lay back, wait for opportunities to show up?
I think it means see what happens, I guess, in that do your best. And it's about, I guess, in the context of this, it's about, I guess it's whatever will be, in a way, in terms of a way of accepting success or happiness or failure with a kind of like attitude of a sanguine acceptance of life.
Good word.
That's awesome. Ben, where can people go online to find out more about you and Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared?
Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared is a YouTube channel. So all of the films are on there. You can search for Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared, and everything's there. Also, we work as a company called Blink Inc. And Blink Industries, which I don't think the website's up quite yet, but it probably will be, which is where we make other content, and Becky and Joe's commercial work and things are on there as well. And I work there, so
are you
I
on
produce
Twitter?
lots of things. I'm on Twitter. I am. I think under the handle Bloler.
Bloler.
B-Loler.
Oh, I see. Wait,
Sure.
Is that B-L-O-L-E-R?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. We will put a link to that. If
It
you don't
rolls
mind.
off the tongue.
That's fine. Yeah.
Ben, it's been a pleasure having you here in the Crowd Scene studio. Thanks so much for joining
It's
us.
been a pleasure being here. It's been fun.
Hey, thanks, Ben. So you've been listening to Crowd Scene, the show about successful crowdfunding campaigns and the people who make them happen. Our big thanks to our guest in the studio, Ben Lole, creative producer here in London, for his time and his insights in this episode.
To find out more about Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared, just search for Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared on the internet and you will easily find their YouTube channel. Go and watch them all immediately.
And to get in touch or hear about upcoming guests on this podcast or sign up to our newsletter, please follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Crowd Scene Show, or go directly to crowdsceneshow.com.
And if you like this podcast and would like us to make some more, a great way to support the show is to write a positive review on iTunes. It just takes a second and it helps us reach more listeners. Thanks.
And if you haven't already, please subscribe to Crowd Scene on iTunes or any other podcast app. Our thanks to Kim Bookbinder, as usual, for her theme music. Check her out at kimbookbinder.com. Also thanks to Jim Fowler at jimfowlermusic.com for his expert ears.
So until next time.
Thanks for listening.
Crowd scene, gonna kick it with Pete and Mike. Crowd scene, interviews behind the hype. Crowd scene, crowd scene. What do you do? What do you say to make crowdfunding go your way? Crowd scene.
why I call epic.